Black Hawk Down, A Story of Modern War, was written by Mark Bowden, an American author and journalist born in Missouri. The story he tells takes place in the rustic, crowded streets of Mogadishu, Somalia, and details a fight between the United States military, along with some help from the United Nations, and the wild mobs of Somalia, most of whom were trying to defend the Somali warlord and intended target of the mission, Mohammed Farah Adid. Through interviews from both sides of the conflict, along with video observation and other research, Bowden is able to narrate the attempt to capture Adid that led to 2 Black Hawk helicopters crashing and the impending rescue efforts that were necessary to secure the downed men. It all started one afternoon in the sweltering Somali sun as United States soldiers began to head out for what they thought would be a short, easy mission. After being dropped in by the helicopters, everything seemed to be going fine. Then, out of nowhere, a Black Hawk was shot down. Then another. In the first crash, everyone died. On the other, piloted by Michael Durant, the men on board barely survived. However, they were in need of a rescue, and the men on the ground had no air support. The mission quickly ran out of control, and the unprepared men on the ground were forced to stay overnight in the raging city under the command of Sergeant Howe and Captain Steele, who were both very important to the mission and story. In the end, a majority of the men made it out alive, including the pilot, Durant, who was captured after his crash, but many men died and nearly all were hurt. Though a military success on paper, the Battle of Mogadishu was extremely costly to both the United States government and all of those who were a part of the fighting. As explained by Bowden, Sergeant Howe knew that they'd just fought one of the most one-sided battles in American history. On the other hand, Bowden laments that immediately after the battle, the death toll was 13 and 73 men had been injured. With this, Washington had lost its stomach for the fight. In his writing, Bowden was able to capture the real detail and atmosphere of the fight. For example, he described how rounds would come in long bursts, snapping between the soldiers, over their heads, nicking the tin shed with a high-pitched ring, and popping right through the metal. Bowden also clearly depicted the more horrid side of the war, as he described the men probing through pools of bright red blood to help stop a wound from bleeding. He greatly enhances his writing through the use of rhetorical devices. For instance, he uses an asyndeton in saying that the soldiers were predators, heavy metal avengers, unstoppable, invincible. He also uses a polysyndeton to describe a medic who had tried everything and was feeling desperate and frustrated and angry. Finally, Bowden uses many rhetorical questions such as, was this really what he wanted so badly, to help show that war isn't at all as glamorous as it was and is made out to be. He also uses candid and colorful diction to depict a grim tone. The New York Times says that Black Hawk Down lacks in literary finesse, yet makes up for it in pure narrative drive, as the reader gets to ride to battle with the Rangers. Project Muse had nothing bad to say about the book at all, remarking that it is about as thrilling as nonfiction gets. Overall, I enjoyed the book. It was a great read, but not a book for the lighthearted. There was a huge amount of gore described in detail that I didn't like, but that's just war.